Okay. We're covering all there. Costa Ludo Fiorentino. Then we have a Roma tomato. Alright, what should I do? How should I do this? Hi everybody. Throughout the school year we're going to cover different vegetables of the week. These are going to be things that we are growing on the farm, and our first vegetable of the school year is going to be tomatoes. There's really nothing like a farm-grown tomato. Really beats that store-bought tomato. I'm sure they're all familiar to you in some form or another, but we're going to cover a couple recipes this week. The first is going to be tomato sandwiches. I'm going to teach you how to make a simple loaf of bread and also some mayonnaise from scratch. Then we're just going to slice some tomatoes and put some sandwiches together. Okay, so before we get started, let's talk about the different tomato varieties that we're growing on the farm. Starting with the smallest, we have our Red Robins. Then we have our Super Sweet 100s, our Peace Vine tomatoes, our Sun Golds. This is the color they are when they're ripe. Not all tomatoes turn red. And these are our chocolate cherries. This is my favorite of the cherry-sized tomatoes. They're super, super rich. Then moving up in size, we have an Italian heirloom variety called a Costa Ludo Fiorentino. Then we have a Roma tomato. This one's called a San Marzano. This is what you use to make sauces and pastes. This is a black trifle tomato. It's a Japanese heirloom variety. This is a black Krim. This is a Russian variety. And this is an early girl tomato. This is the most common tomato grown in America. And then this is a pineapple tomato, which is also an old German variety. Okay, so for making bread, we're going to use a scale rather than cup measurements. For flour, we want to use 420 grams of flour. We want to use 7 grams of dry active yeast. We want to use 9 grams of salt. We want to use 25 grams of sugar. And then you want to mix the dry ingredients thoroughly. For wet ingredients, we want to use 240 grams of water, 60 grams of whole milk, and 60 grams of softened butter. Add the wet and dry ingredients, stir them up with a spoon. When the dough is shaggy, you want to switch to using your hand and knead the dough until it is smooth. You want to put a little flour around your smooth dough to help it keep from sticking to the bowl. Move it to a smaller vessel with a little bit more flour. Cover it and let it rise for 45 minutes. Alright, now we're going to make the mayonnaise. All that mayonnaise is an emulsification of egg yolks and a neutral oil. You don't want to use olive oil because the taste is too strong. But we're going to use a food processor to blend together egg yolks and this oil. And the proteins and the fats are going to bind together into a nice, smooth emulsification. And just for some taste, we're going to do salt, pepper, and a little bit of lemon juice. I like to use a cold blender head, so I put the base of the blender in the fridge overnight before I make mayonnaise. Then you want to separate the yolks from the whites. You just need 3 egg yolks in the blender base. Then you want to strain some lemon juice so you don't get any seeds. Put the top on, and you want to very slowly pour 300 milliliters of canola oil into the blender. It's really important to go slowly and consistently so that it doesn't break. Then you have a nice thick mayonnaise. At the end, you want to add your salt and pepper and fold it in with a rubber spatula. So now that we've talked about how to make the bread, we've talked about our tomatoes, and we've talked about how to make mayonnaise, we're going to put together some simple open-faced tomato sandwiches. Our bread came out a little flat, so we are just going to make some small open-faced sandwiches. So cut some pieces of bread, just in about that size, smear with some mayonnaise, slice your tomatoes as thick as you want them, put them on top, and then we're going to use some fresh basil, just 1 or 2 leaves on each one, and then top with some salt. And there you go. And that's it. That's just a little simple open-faced tomato sandwich. I love these in the summertime because most of what you're tasting is just that fresh tomato. Cool. It's awkward to eat on camera.